Hi, this is Dr. Luke with a quick lecture about classroom management. And you've done two readings regarding classroom management, and you're about to listen to a lecture. I want you to take a couple of seconds, go ahead and pause the lecture, and think about how you would describe classroom management. Okay, I also paused. Um, Ideally, you included something about procedures or how things are done throughout the day, not just discipline. So the way I like to think of it, I read this quote a couple of years ago, actually in InStyle magazine, but it said, like a hair-obsessed Girl Scout, you could never be too prepared. And that is actually one of my mantras when it comes to classroom management, is be prepared. So let's think about one of the readings, management versus discipline. Are you leading your classroom? Are you managing your classroom? Think about teachers you've had in the past. My first grade teacher, Miss Mackey, was disciplining the classroom. She was all about, you will do this because I said so, and we were all scared to death of her. Mr. Switzer, my seventh grade science teacher, was leading the classroom because he was managing it, if that makes sense. That is, we knew what we were supposed to do. There weren't really any surprises as far as discipline or as far as procedures went. And he really was leading us to, be better learners, as opposed to Miss Mackey. I think she hoped we learned or she cared, but it seemed now that she was more focused on us doing exactly what she said. Cycle of failure. There's a reason I'm bringing this up, and it will be on the next slide. But when I was in elementary school, there were a couple of kids and who were behavior problems, I guess is what you would say. Not behavior disorders, not emotionally disturbed, but had some behavior issues. And it kind of went like this. I remember their names, Mitch and Jason, and there was also Josh, but Josh moved away. Anyway, they were unable to complete the work. And so then they became disruptive, whether they were talking to a friend to see how to do it, or they started playing with their pencil and, flipping it about, something like that. Well, then of course the teacher got mad and sent them out into the hallway or to the principal's office. By the way, two of the best places to be are the hallway and the principal's office because there's a lot going on. Kids often like going to the hallway or the principal's office. But they're removed from class, and so then they're missing instruction, which then starts the cycle over the next day or a couple of days later, and they're unable to complete the work. So when you're thinking about your management system, keep this in mind and how you can structure it so that students can be successful. The point of having procedures and routine, one of the ideas is, it's not one of the ideas, but you're a teacher and you're there to promote engaged time. You want students engaging in activities that are helping them to learn the content. So here's how you can start to think about it when you're thinking about your classroom management system. And I say system because that's what it is. There are multiple things in theory going on that make the classroom move in a smooth and productive manner, which allows students to be more engaged. But you're going to think about how the class will flow. If you're someone who will collect homework every day, do you want there to be a homework basket that every student goes to first thing in the morning? Well, if they're going to go there first thing in the morning, do you want it near the door or do you want them to enter the room? Something else to think about, if you have, let's say you have stations. You know, some kids will go to the art station and some kids will go to the spelling station. You know, you want to make sure that the art supplies are near the art station so that kids aren't going back and forth, walking all over the classroom when you want them to be engaged with certain material. Same thing in a high school biology class. You know, if you're getting ready to do dissections, you don't want the dissection stuff to be all the way across the room. You're going to establish clear expectations. That was actually when I was talking about the kids that I went to high school or to elementary school with, Josh, Mitch, and Jason. One of the things that was involved in that cycle of failure is there were clear expectations to a degree, you know, do your work. But one of the issues was one day they'd go to the principal's office. The next day they'd get their name on the board. The next day they'd miss recess or something like that. There wasn't a consistency, and there absolutely should be consistency. Here are the expectations and here are the consequences. And I'm not saying consequences is bad. I'm saying them as both good and, you know, negative, if you will. So for example, if you bring in your homework, you get a sticker. If you don't bring in your homework, you know, have to finish it the next night or whatever. But the expectation is clear and the consequences is clear. If you do your homework, then you get your sticker. That is a consequence because it is the action immediately following the behavior. You will also hear the word consequence in a negative connotation. Just make sure you're paying attention to what's, you know, being said. You want there to be a routine so that, for example, if you collect homework, they know every day it should go in there so that every day you're not having to answer the question, oh, where does homework go? You want to practice these routines. Practice, practice, practice. I usually practice, you know, the first full week of school. Sometimes the first 2 weeks, I would reinforce. And again, I'm primarily talking about elementary because that's what I taught. But, you know, you can also do this with high school. You practice handing in your homework and, you know, you practice walking down the hall if that's an important skill. And then you use precision requests. That is, you state exactly what you would like to occur. You know, please walk to the yellow square or what have you. I also agree with the low and slow when you're using precision requests. That is, your voice is at a normal level and you say it slowly enough so that a student will have time to process everything that you're saying. If you learn nothing else from this lecture, here's what it is. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Be thoughtful and hone in on what matters when you're thinking about the routines and rules in your class. When I was teaching, I had 3 rules because most of the other rules fell in between those 3 rules. Try your hardest, be respectful, and I don't actually remember the 3rd one, but someone said, oh, well, what about keeping hands and feet and all objects to yourself? And I said, well, that's being respectful, so I don't need a separate rule. You can see the thought process there, but you will find what works for you. Also, multiple contingencies, that is, have ways for students to earn reinforcers on their own, as a group, in small groups. Multiple things can be helpful. And offer choice. We all like to be given choices, even if it's as simple as you can do math first, or you can do spelling first, or you can do homework on Monday night or Wednesday night, but you must do it 1 night a week, or, you know, again, whatever you come up with. There shouldn't be anything that is a surprise that would negatively impact students. That is, the consequence should be known. Don't be switching it on students because that's likely how you're going to get outbursts and disruptive behavior. Number 3, positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement are both reinforcement. You will hear negative reinforcement be used as a synonym for punishment. It is not. Reinforcement always increases the future likelihood of behavior. Punishment decreases it. Here are some options that I have used in the past. Those in red are specifically for kind of routines and procedures. Those in blue are for whole class earning, and then green is individual. And I'll go fairly quickly because this is sort of a lengthy lecture. Ruby Red Slippers was how students let me know they were using the restroom. Students didn't ask me if they could use the restroom. I explained, we practiced. Here are the Ruby Red Slippers. If you need to go to the restroom, go get one off the desk, put it on your desk. That way, if I saw a Ruby Red Slipper on someone's desk, I knew that's where they were. That's where they were at. Now, there were times where the Ruby Red Slippers weren't available, usually right after recess. But again, that's because it had been being abused. Everyone comes back from recess and then everyone has to use the restroom. But we chatted about it. They knew that it wasn't going to be available. It wasn't a surprise the first day when they weren't available right after recess. Lunch plan, kids came in and they moved a paper clip, not a paper clip, sorry, a clothespin to what lunch they wanted that day. For students who couldn't read, I used pictures. Posted schedule, just an agenda of the day. And if there was a big change in the schedule, we were having a fire drill or we were having a rally or something like that, I made that noted. Book bags. Each student had a bag with activities that they could do independently and 2 books at their reading level, so that if some students finished early and we weren't quite ready to move as a class to the next thing, students knew that they were to go get their book bags, and we practiced that numerous times. Again, in the first couple weeks of class, after Thanksgiving break, after winter break, and after spring break. Red and green yarn. When I was running stations, if I was unavailable or working with a student, I would wear red. Red meant you had to problem solve it on your own. And I never was upset with a student who problem solved and came up with a plan. If they had made a choice that wasn't great, we talked about it. Oh, okay, you've made this choice. How can we do it better next time? But red was, Mrs. Luke is unavailable and you need to figure this out. Green yarn, I'm available, come see me. And again, I practiced that numerous times before it was an official first moment. Happy face, we had 16 pieces of a happy face, and if the class as a group was doing what they were supposed to, engage in learning, all of that, then a piece of the happy face went up. After all pieces were up, we voted on a class party. Treat jar, same idea. When students were working or when they were showing support to another friend, and I've noticed I'd go over and say, thank you for doing such and such, please go get a treat jar. And then that usually started everyone else doing something helpful that then they would get a treat as well. Or maybe instead of doing a happy face piece, I would say, all right, everyone gets a treat out of the jar. Class meetings, I think I mentioned this during our bullying days, but again, it was just a chance for the entire class to get together and talk about things that were going on. The individual, I'm going to talk about 3 of them. If you want to know anything about the others, just please email me. Star money, I had 5 behaviors, and if they were doing those things for most of the morning, they earned their star or a penny if we were working on math skills. Australia was just an area of the room where students could go and just kind of pull themselves together if they were having trouble. Class jobs, everyone had a job, makes you feel like you belong. And then, feeding the fish, then I didn't have to remember to feed the fish every time. Standing workstation, people were allowed to stand to work. Fidget bag, for those students who it was difficult for them to just sit completely still, and we were having a guest speaker or something like that, then they would go get something out of the fidget bag, and it just allowed them to play with something, small by their desk. And word whammies, tattle treats. I guess I've explained everything now. Word whammies. My second year teaching, I had students who strung together some fantastic cuss words. I mean, ones I'd never heard of before. And my goal was to, put them into the general classroom as much as possible. And with language like that, I couldn't do that. So I would take Tootsie Rolls and I cut them up into 10 little pieces. 10 little pieces because I had taken data to see about how many, big string of cuss words are they saying a day, and it was about 9. So the reason 10 treats went in is because I wanted to make sure on that first day everyone got at least one little piece of Tootsie Roll, so that they could come in contact with the reinforcer. And I knew that everyone liked Tootsie Rolls because I asked them. Always want to ask what they're interested in. All right, this is the most quick that I can do classroom management and hit the highlights. This is one of my favorite topics. If you are interested in discussing this more, we might be able to do that later this semester. Have a great day.